the first thing is there's been some questions, and we try to collect them off the site, and then I try to answer them here. So let me try to get through some of those questions, and hopefully people will interrupt and ask more questions so that we can share information, communicate, try to figure this whole thing out together. It's not like it's super easy. All right, so let's move on. Question: can we get an optional email notification of any scores of our own which are surpassed by other people? It would be nice to have an email notifications for at least the incorrect adjudications turned back on so you can see what went wrong. So there's two sort of things. One is, can we get an email if someone beats my score? That is a great idea, and the answer is yes, but it's on the list, man. The answer is yes, but it's on the list, and there are other things ahead of it on the list, and the list just seems to just keep growing. And then also to get an email, if you haven't, we turned off all the emailing for now because it was creating too many emails for people. And there was not a good way to control what emails were being sent and what were. So there's a whole system that has to be put in place there that will allow you to, ideally, I think the system is for you to be able to assign what events at Twin Galaxies will trigger an email for you and let it be as flexible as possible across the whole site. So there's no resistance on these ideas at all. It is just merely a question and function of time and resources. And how many directions does the Twin Galaxy official joystick support? It only has one direction, and that is the direction of win. You'll learn that, Data God, when you practice your Zookeeper. All right. So let's move on. This is a big one, so I want to read through it for everybody. And here we go with the track stuff. So it's a question about the new Create a Track feature. While I do agree that Twin Galaxies needs to start tracking new generation systems and different things such as smartphones and tablets, is Twin Galaxies afraid that it might become something like Record Setter or highscore.com, where anyone can make themselves a record holder for anything? That's the only fear I have with this new feature. I fear that it will get flooded with lots of unnecessary tracks, like fastest level completion of Super Mario Bros. World 2, 3, or something that is created just to ungrandfather a track that was grandfathered for a reason known to everyone for being broke or flawed. And if those new tracks get approved, then they could rob a lot of people of their hard work. So let's say someone makes a variation like this: Super Nintendo, Super Mario World, NTSC points, TG extreme settings using Feather. Anyone could max Mario World out using a Feather in the first level alone. Again, I'm not bashing the new system or the creating a track idea, but there's got to be some sort of line in the sand. Or I feel we might get some Record Setter / highscore.com looking tracks. Everyone wants to be a winner or be number one at something. This will definitely achieve that goal, but at what cost, man? At what cost? Okay. Let me try to address this. Because when you think about these things, you have to think about it systemically, okay? And at the highest level, sort of functionally. And on one hand, you have people being able to create the tracks that they want to compete on, just freely, okay, on one hand. Then, on the other hand, you have a controlled group of people picking and choosing what tracks are allowed to be brought in. So you have these two extremes on each side. And the problem is they are really diametrically opposed to each other. At any given moment, if you have a group of people, no matter how wide it is, determining what tracks are allowed to exist in the database, that accomplishes one goal of screening the tracks before they get into the database, but it creates a whole new set of problems surrounding the process of screening those tracks. Why does that person get to screen a track? Why does that person? I disagree with this person. I don't. Well, we don't agree on that. No, you can get into a whole new subset. So it really doesn't. While it might solve this issue, it just moves. Think of like issues as like generic things that have no. They're just issues, and you assign them to whatever. So okay, there's an issue assigned to this right now. We solve that, but all we do is we move the little issue tag over to this new category of, well, wait a minute. How are we going to pick the tracks and who's picking and what's the system of picking, and there needs to be a time, and so the issue just moves. It's a different kind of issue, but it's still not. Okay, so do you understand the conundrum that exists here? It is a conundrum. Okay, so the thinking, now I've put a lot of thought into this. I mean, I care so much about Twin Galaxies, the scores, the players, creating proper recognition for people. I have all those concerns about dilution and all this other stuff, but there are real practical implementation problems that I have to think about and consider. That it's easy on the forum to just ignore a huge chunk of the problem and just say, oh, well, hey, it's like, it's like, you know what? The world, the United States has an obesity problem. I have an idea. Why don't we just tell people that they should just eat less? Then they'll know, and then they'll just eat less. Like, okay, yes, that could work. No, it can't. It actually can't. It creates a whole different set of issues. Who are you to tell me what to eat? Like, it goes, so. I keep on looking at, like, how nature solves problems like this. Like, you look to other systems that deal with things like this, and you look at, well, how do you solve it? Okay. So far, the best solution. Carrie Swidecki is rooting for us. Yes. So far, the best solution is not to place heavy controls on the tracks that people are creating and putting into the database beyond the tracks being unoffensive and not exactly duplicative. Okay? Beyond those two functions, having someone who's taken the time to adjudicate 60 things to be able to make a track that they care about and they want to put in, okay. Does that create the opportunity for all kinds of tracks that are, to one person might be super lame, or to a lot of people could be super lame, but to these two people, it's like, oh my God, this is the track of how fast I can connect my Atari joystick to my Sega and compete on Sonic. Oh, wait. So, to me, the answer for a lot of this revolves around the ability for the community to decide how valuable and worthy that track is in the database, so that other people coming into the database get a proper sense of the tracks that they want to compete on. If they're interested in competing on a track that people think is a really legitimate track, that there's heavy competition on, and this track matters, they need a way of knowing that amongst the tracks that exist. Now, right now, there's no way to do that in Twin Galaxies. Like, you look and there's just tracks everywhere. All tracks are effectively created equal, and that is what starts to breed the core problem of dilution of, well, if all the tracks are basically equal in the database, then we need to control what's going into the database, because they're not equal. It is not. I can get a feather and rack up a score. That's not the same thing. It's going to rob. Okay. So as I speak, good night, Carrie Swidecki. As I speak, the engineers are engineering a track rating system that will be built into the database, not just for new tracks coming in, but for all tracks in the database, period. what will happen is all of the users will be able to just look at tracks and decide what they perceive the value of that track to be in a rating system. And over the course of time, what will happen, and then the database display, the way that the database will sort these tracks for you will be in order of rating, of importance. So when you go to a game and you pull up the tracks, it's going to show you first all the tracks that people feel strongly about, that are important, that matter, and then then the ones that are less interesting to the competitive world, and maybe they're more niche, and maybe there's only a couple people who want to compete on them. That's fine. You can find them there, but they're not pushed front and center in the same way. So through this mechanism, and then so not only will you be able to see what the rating is, but you'll also be able to see how many people participated in that rating. So that way you'll know, like, if it has a high rating, but there's like only like 2 people who rated it, that's not the same thing as someone who have got, 1,000 people have rated this and it's got a high rating. And so that will also factor in to the way that the scores are displayed. So, and it's effectively performing the screening function that people are wanting. But it's performing the screening function after the track is in the database. Because frankly, a track existing in a database doesn't hurt anybody. It's not taking away from anybody, as long as there's a way to properly filter and screen and weight the tracks. Does this make logical sense? Is everybody following along this? Did I lose everybody? I lost Sroka. I've got... Can we... All right, we'll get to track change. Can we change it? Well, let me answer this. Can we change a track that we submitted? There are no scores yet, and I may have made it too strict. Right now, there's no way to do that. I need to put some... My concern is that you create a track, it sits in the database, there's no scores on it yet, right? But someone looked at it, and now they're working to produce a score on the basis of the rules. And then you go, and although they haven't submitted yet, you change the rules, and then you negate the work that they put in, that they are planning to submit against. So there needs to be, I need to put more thinking around that issue. This is why there's such a strict policy of no refunds. Get your track right when you do it. It is what it is. I think with track rating, tracks are going to live and die by their popularity, it's not even so much their popularity, it's just by their rating. And so tracks that don't really matter, this is how we're going to ultimately get to nothing but tracks that people are really, really, really excited about and a lot of activity, but still allow for those remote, one-of-a-kind tracks to still exist. And not, because you remember, ultimately, this is about increasing the fun in playing video games. And what's fun for you might be not fun for someone else. And maybe there's just someone who just really likes to see how fast he can die in Donkey Kong, and that's what he wants to measure himself on, And there's like 5 people in the world who that's what they compete on, how fast you can die in Donkey Kong, and they're measuring in milliseconds. Who knows? I don't know. Probably wouldn't be the highest front-rated track, but to simply tell them, well, what you find fun is not as important as what we find fun. I think that there's room. I think there's room there. Zelina Games says, the score type stuff needs to be fixed though. Elapsed time getting posted as points. That's been fixed. That is fixed. If it's not fixed, report it. That has been fixed. So let me move on. More questions. Without having to change the current setup too much, I think that once a new track variation is submitted, there should be a waiting period before people can donate submission points. The idea here is that There should be some time to discuss the new track in question. After discussion, people can come to some conclusion. And see, again, this is a filter function. And to me, you're sitting there and you're investing time in the Twin Galaxies and you're adjudicating, okay? And you're earning submission points. And you're earning them because you know why? You want a track to compete on. You want to set it up for you and your 10 friends. You want to set up a track. I don't think you should be blocked by other people to create your track. You've earned the points if you want to spend them and do that. I don't think that you should be blocked. Now, in a world where all the tracks are the same and created equal, I understand this suggestion. But in a world where track rating exists, it's okay. You might create a lower rated track. This will factor into other things in the future like track investments. If you have a low rated track, how do you think your investment is going to yield? There are other things to it that can come of it. Also, it can also affect the things that, say, Guinness decides to utilize from the database. They might say, well, we're only going to take tracks that are rated here, and the other tracks are not going to, make the cut, so to speak, into the book. It creates that elite exclusionary opportunity that I know that we as competitors want to have, but it also still allows wider participation for those people who are having fun and they want to participate. So yes, should a single player be able to donate the full 50 submission points to add a track? Yes, if you want to. Yes, you can. Yes. The current accepted speedrun track variations are in the system as point in. Yes, we fixed this bug. This bug is fixed. Number 3, please check it. Should the submitter of a new track variation be allowed to donate any submission points? Yes. This person says no, it should be up to the community. Again, the buying of tracks, the creating of tracks, I believe is something that you earn as an individual. The popularity, the authority, the legitimacy of your track, that's something that's earned through the upcoming rating system that will be very, very important. People are going to look at the ratings and they're going to be like, I'm only competing on tracks that are rated in the upper echelon. I'm not even interested in these other tracks. Since Twin Galaxies never had anything like that, it's understandable that all these other solutions are coming in to try to fix it. But I do think that having ratings is going to help a lot. It will take us, it will at least take us one step closer to a solution that is concerned with dilution, that is concerned with making sure that an achievement on one track that's really, really hard is not diluted by some other achievement on another track that's not nearly as hard but seems to be similar, but it's not. There's got to be a way to separate them and to quickly visually identify that separation. So let's move on. For pre-Generation 7 consoles, there exists a region-based separation, PAL and NTSC. In an effort to increase the competition and remove unnecessary dilution in the scoreboard, will Twin Galaxies consider merging these tracks together and add a region attribute within the database, which will allow all the regions globally to compete together on the same track while still allowing for regional comparisons to be made, as clearly some games will play differently depending on the region. Okay, so the short answer is yes, this is something that we can consider. This is like what we did with MAME, right? We put in all MAME versions now are all on the same tracks, but you can now see what version was used for a particular record. I don't think in MAME the variation is going to be as great as you might get with some of these PAL and TSC. But if, to me the issue is, do you really want to put them all together? Because you're going to get tracks where there's a clear difference between PAL and NTSC, say for speed running, and let's say PAL is always faster. So do you get a distort, unless you're intelligent enough to know, well, I'm going to sort just by, I understand where the suggestion comes from. It's not a bad one, but I think it needs to be thought through because What we don't want to get into is a lot of by hand custom adjusting of individual tracks over and over again. That does not scale well. You can't keep up. So, but maybe you could do it by hand because it's that PAL NTSC stuff is over and it's only the old, and you just kind of go through and manually do it. But you're talking about paying someone a ton of money to go and figure this out. So let's. Short answer is not a bad idea, not totally against it, but there are issues. Yeah, the competitive speedrunning community does this. Yes, I know. I'm very familiar with the speedrunning stuff. Very familiar, which would be a whole new thing I'll address at some point. Moving on. It was mentioned before that old tracks wouldn't have rule changes, so the solution was to create a new track instead. How is this done? I tried it, and the result is a duplicate track. How can we suggest an obviously broken track to be grandfather? Okay. Unless the track you create is absolutely identical. Now the thing you have to understand is the system will look at your description of the game, and if it matches something that already has that exact description, it will stop you. So let's say you have Donkey Kong, and then your description is points, okay? Our system will look and say, wait a minute, there already is a Donkey Kong points. So you can't have that. And let's just say the Donkey Kong points you want to do, it's 4 points, but the rules you want to set up is a little bit different. The rules is what makes the track different, but you need to give it another name. So you'd have to call it Donkey Kong Points dash jumping 10 barrels. And then you specify the rules in there. If all the rule, if the only time Twin Galaxies will kick out another track is if it is identical. It's identical in name, it's identical in rules, where there's no variation between the rules for one and the rules for another. None, no variation. And so far we don't really have that situation. There's similar tracks, but there's differences, like the dip switch settings on the Donkey Kong side. They're different. They're not identical. And we can leave it to the rating system to decide which one is going to be ranked up over the other one. That's for the Donkey Kong community. They can decide that. So yes, you can still create, if there's a track that clearly needs to be reinvented, just give it a slightly different description name. Just add to it, points dash something, and then it will be accepted. And as long as the rules are the same, aren't the same, you'll be okay. We want to add to the database a button that says duplicative, right? So that if you're in the database and you see something that's exactly the same, exactly as another track, no differences, you can hit the duplicated button, and it would notify admin, and admin will take a look to see if it truly is an exact duplicate of something else. And if it is, then we would delete it. But I think it's going to be a very rare case. Fighting Arcade. Jace, I see what you're saying, but will this get my new track flagged as duplicate by newcomers in the future? If it gets flagged as duplicate, it gets manually looked at by a human being at Twin Galaxies. It's not going to automatically get deleted. It just notifies us, wait, take a look at this, make sure it's not an exact duplicate. And I'm saying it has to be an exact duplicate of rules. The wording, like, look, if it says must jump, if one track says must jump 10 barrels, right? And then the duplicate says must jump 10 barrels, but it's the word 10 spelled out instead of the number 10, that's considered a duplicate, even though the words are a little bit the same. The actual rules set up are duplicates, so that would be a duplicate. But if one said must jump 10 barrels and the other one said must jump 9 barrels, that's not a duplicate. So let's move on. So going forward, at least on the immediate basis, we're focused on getting the track rating system in as quickly as possible so that we can start sorting all of these tracks. And, it'll be quick and easy, just a click. Boom, boom, sort. This is a top-rated track. This is a low-rated track. We don't all that stuff can start to factor in. And what's we're also working on is we've reached a point where our user interface on the site is it's getting cumbersome. So we need to simplify the user interface. So what you're going to see probably is, we have the toolbar at top. You'll probably start seeing more icons appear up there with drop-down menus to add tracks and do that stuff. And we'll start to reduce those big giant buttons that you see on the site so that it's really all managed just very simply from the toolbar, and you can get at everything really quickly. So we need to do that work. And so that you'll see that start to take place. And no, we're not going to remove the ability to post data guide. And then there's just, for now in the immediate future, we're going to be bug fixing. We're going to bug fix the video uploads. We're continuing work. It's a lot better, but we still have more to do there. We're going to bug fix. There's a bunch of small bugs. Anything that comes up with the track rating system, anything that comes up with the add track system, we're obviously going to fix. We're going to go through the scoreboard errors, fix all that stuff. We're going to just spend some time polishing it up. With the simplification, I think what we're going to wind up also creating are some videos, some instructional videos. Like, for instance, with simplification, getting verified will be made a lot easier. You'll just see a little magic thing. Click here, get verified, so you don't have to hunt and all that stuff. So these are small things, but the cumulative effect of them all it's a lot of work, and it should make the whole Twin Galaxies experience be good. But then we're going to do some instructional videos. Here's how to get verified. Here's how to create a new track. Here's how to submit. And have sort of real instructional fun videos that people can watch. To sort of bring the professionalism up a little bit. And that's it. Tim Het. Jace, what about tracks that were created for competitions but closed? Can we make a note or something rather than open an identical track? Yes. I think what we should probably do for tracks that are closed is I'm trying to think now, because we can create new tracks, are there any reasons to just not open up old tracks that have been closed for whatever reason and just let them be open? And because we can just create that track if they wanted to do it, or are some tracks closed and should just stay closed forever, no matter what? With the adjudication system that we have and the track creation system that we have, opening up closed tracks may not be as problematic as it would have been under the old Twin Galaxies system. What do you guys think about that? I'd like to see some commentary about that. Yes, I'm sure Rudy definitely has a well thought out opinion on this topic, Wes. But, when I think about it, I understand why a track got closed in the past. But does the reasoning still stand today with all the new systems that are online? And, because I think tracks that are just, you have a track that got closed down because you could just leech forever and ever and ever and ever. I mean, great. No one wants to compete on it. I mean, maybe someone does, but does it hurt to be able to take a score in on it? I mean, I don't know. I think maybe, now that you can rate these things, be very interested.
Hey, Jace.
Yes.
I'll chuck an example at you, just for argument's sake. There's elevator action on the arcade platform.
Yes.
There's one variation is normal, which is very easy, which is open, and there's one which is hard difficulty or very hard or whatever. And the rules state the variation is only for the Fun Spot 2002 tournament, and that it's closed because of that. I think we should probably get that, well, specifically that one open, but other ones like it as well, because it's only been closed because it's been in that one. So.
Here's my question. Think of the reasons that it should stay closed. Why should it? Help me understand. I'm trying to understand why these tracks should stay closed, because I don't want to miss anything. There was some wisdom put in place that closed these tracks, and I want to understand it somehow. And do you understand it?
I don't have any reason why it should stay closed. I can't see any reason why.
Do you have any idea why they closed it, or why they would close that?
Nah, unsure. It's. I mean, I'm not really that familiar with the game, but
I'm just trying to figure out the logic of closing some of these tracks. I mean, I get it if, like, see, here's the thing. I can see closing tracks when you're manually adjudicating and you have only so many refs and they can only watch certain things, and you're trying to control resource allocation, and there's some track that just is it's not fun per se. Now that something's been discovered, it's pretty clear that this track goes to crap really fast, right? If you can leech on level 1. So what's the point of adjudicating that? It's not even in the spirit of the game and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
So you close it, right? But and so I get it then, but today now, hell, if you want to compete on a track that's broken clearly, and someone could just leech forever and ever and ever, for lack of a better purpose, it's no, Tim, I get it. You're not talking about broken tracks. I'm just trying to, like, Tim had, like, I'm just saying in general, closed tracks. My mic might be dead. Sound is back. Okay, never mind. Fixed.
You're back.
What did I do? What happened? Did I bump something? I'm just trying to understand why a track should remain closed. Can somebody in the chat, somebody give me now in today's system, why should a track remain closed? Just on a basic level. Just I'm not opposed to keeping them closed. I'm just trying to understand it.
I think for simplification purposes, this one could stay closed. So there's only the one track on that game for that platform. But
just easy. But why? I mean,
yeah, because you can't marathon the game on the easy difficulty as well. So.
But my question is does it hurt to have the other track open? I mean,
No, I don't think it does.
So fighting arcade says, yeah, this is the thing, guys, and gals, if you're watching, Wiggles, we're talking about the track, like, there are closed tracks in the Twin Galaxies database from the past that got closed for various reasons that I could understand for back at that time. The example I give is you have a track, people are competing on it, and then someone discovers, on level 1, all you have to do is stand in the corner and you get an infinite amount of points forever and ever. So what they do then is they close a track and they say, well, we found some sort of exploit, and so we need to set up a track with different rules so that you can't stand in the corner. So they close the track. Okay. And that's because as when individual referees are reviewing things, they don't want to review that stuff. That's not in the spirit of the game. I mean, like the tape could be 50 hours long. There's reasons to just, no, we're going to do it over here. But now with the new system, you can create the new track. You could leave the old track. If you really want to submit on a track where someone can stand in the corner and get infinite amount of points, go ahead. But and then we have, and we're talking about implementing a track rating system so that the community can just rate the value of these tracks in the database. So that would probably be a low-rated track. If you want to compete on it, go ahead. And then there's high-rated tracks where, obviously the rules are better. It's been vetted out. It's popular. People are using it. So Eben Sugua, I can't pronounce it, but it's an awesome name. Jace, the fun spot track is not actually closed, to clarify, just that the fun spot only verbiage from the track description should be removed. I see. I see. Well, see, like I said, I don't really see a lot of strong arguments for keeping tracks closed. What I'll do is I'll create a thread on Twin Galaxies and I'll just ask, you see a reason to keep these tracks closed in the face of the fact that now tracks are going to be rated by the community, and so they're not all equal anymore, really. They won't be. I mean, yeah, you can compete on them all equally, but the way that the community will regard achievements, the way that Twin Galaxies will regard achievements will obviously be affected by a track rating. If you've got 1,000 people who say this Donkey Kong track is the track, right? And it's getting a lot of scores, it's getting a lot of activity, and it's Donkey Kong going for points using hammer. Great, and here are the rules. And then you have a Donkey Kong track that is, fastest way to die by jumping into the oil barrel, right? Okay, there's that track. And then if the Donkey Kong community rates that track as very, 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 very low, obviously you're going to be able to recognize the difference in skill, the difference in value, the difference in achievement between those two tracks, even though they're both Donkey Kong tracks. So there you go. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to work with everybody here. I really, really do spend a lot of time thinking about all the different issues that surround these things. I don't want the stuff that and I read the forums and all the stuff we want to guard against, and we want to make sure that people's achievements within Twin Galaxies have value, and that value is recognized. But I also think what I'm hearing is that there are different levels of achievement in this score chasing. Some things are harder than others, and generally speaking, the way Twin Galaxies recognized that was Walter or whoever sort of picked and choose, helped to create that differentiation. And a lot of times that created a disproportionate, it left a lot of players unappreciated who did some really hard things. So I think this way, having the community recognize and weight the database, I think will be a really good, solid way of allowing any track to come in, but also for that track to find its proper place in the pantheon of tracks and achievements, So there you go. Tech 420 says enough rules, fighting time. That's it. Does anybody? So at this point, how much time do I have, Neo?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. So at this point, I want to open it up to just general questions. If anybody has any general questions about anything related to Twin Galaxies. Robotron, once a track is paid for, why does the original create new track thread get a reply feature turned off? Why can't dialogue continue? Okay, the reason for that is We're trying to preserve the process of the sponsorship and dialogue continuing on the sponsored track, I think dilutes the sort of living document of the fact that that track made it in. So when you see a new track, you could look it up and say, well, when did this track go in? What did people say at the time when it went in, before it went in? But if you really think that the dialogue should continue in that, it's mirroring the submission process, right? So that's something that I think could be done, to just let the dialogue continue. I don't know. Post that on the forums and we can talk about it. We can do that. I missed a good question. It said, how are adding photos to the tracks going to work? I've attached photos in the past and they were wiped when TG implemented a new photo system. If I go through and add box art to every game, will it stay there? Yes, it will. Now, okay, in the database you can see the photo, like a place to put photos and you can upload them. They will stay there. They go into our database. What we were planning on doing is figuring out a way for people to accrue some value for doing that. And whether it's fractional submission points or some credibility, or something, so that when you put a picture in there, and we've got to still work out the system, because someone can report the picture and then we take it out, and it's just, bottom line is, yes, if you start putting pictures into the database, they will stay. We're not getting rid of them. They will stay, and they will stay assigned. And I would definitely love it if the community went into the database and started putting all the proper screenshots for all the all the games in there. Let's see. Is Twin Galaxies going to host any big tournaments? Eventually, it will host World Championships, decathlons, Mobile Olympics, and there's work being done on all of those items as we speak. And so, yes. But what will be really interesting is we'll use the scoreboard as a filtering system in terms of who gets for qualifications, right? So to qualify, your ranking needs to be X within these games or whatever it is in order to get into the decathlon. So that is how Twin Galaxies will sort of filter all the people who want to compete at the big event and make sure that the competition is, at the top of the game, and issue invites and all that other stuff. So participating on the site is very important. Very important. You're not gonna not participate on the site and then compete in a Twin Galaxies event that's being recognized and with all the whatever awards and money and whatever. It's not going to happen. You're not going to sit on the side. You will have to have some status within Twin Galaxies, the site itself, if you plan on participating on that side too, if that makes sense. Looking for other questions I might have missed. But then only the same 7 people will show up. Yeah, if you're only talking about arcade, but remember we'll have arcade, mobile, Xbox 360, Nintendo Entertainment System, N64. We'll have all of them, right? So because we have the ability to do that now, and then we'll have sort of special. They won't all. We can all have these take place at the same time, but they're their own things. For example, and for the bigger ones. What else? Anybody else have any other questions? We got a nibbler machine. So 1 billion points. Here I come. Someone had a perfect score, but it got corrupted on my VHS. You know, there's this guy, John Studley, who is trying to get a perfect Pac-Man, and I keep thinking we should get him here at Twin Galaxies Live and have him attempt to do it here live and have the chat and broadcast it. Because eventually he's going to get it. I read that he just missed it by 90 points. That's just that's got to just be so painful. I can't even handle it. When is TG StarCraft tournament going to be? Yeah, no kidding, huh? When we start tracking StarCraft properly, right? A TGL interview of Tom Masaki would be fun. Yeah, it would be. We should totally, like, I want to get Todd Rogers out here and have him go over Atari 2600 and like do some fun stuff. The other thing is I really want to have like an Atari 2600 tournament, like a big one, and work with the Atari age people and all this other stuff, and really, because it's such a basic device and everybody can play one, and I think there's like just some fun to be had with basic Atari, and then you do it with Nintendo Entertainment System. And where can I find some of the TG documentaries? That's a good question. Chasing Ghosts. Amazon.com has a lot of them. Live Dragster. King of Kong, yeah, just go to Amazon.com. They have Chasing Ghosts, King of Kong. They have them all there. And Netflix doesn't have them all. One of my personal things I want to achieve, before I die, here's what I want to have done at minimum. Kill screen Donkey Kong. 100 million on Zookeeper. Billion point Nibbler game. Perfect Pac-Man. That's it.
Hey, Jace, you should get John Lexmark out there to play some Zookeeper for us.
Well, I've heard claims from a Lexmark character that I've read on a forum. So I'd be very excited to see that stuff that he's got cooking.
Wouldn't we all?
I think that would be amazing. Although when I can't hold any world records, and I'm not trying to, I just want to get some of these milestones done, because there is nobody living today who can kill screen Donkey Kong, get 100 million as Zookeeper, do a billion point Nibbler game, and a perfect Pac-Man. Billy Mitchell's done what, kill screen Donkey Kong and a perfect Pac-Man, but that's it. He can't. He's not on the. So if I can get those four, legend. Even though they won't be world records, right? It's okay. I can't hold a world record anyway, but my 100 million will be fully videotaped. It'll probably, like, that's for sure. So you'll see that I can do it. I just think as like the guy, the custodian of Twin Galaxies, I need to put my chops up there, and just, you know, I'm good at a lot of PC games and console games and all that other stuff, but I think it's always good to have the fundamentals. Maybe I'll also add, you know, a 999,000 Kaboom onto the list on Atari 2600.
That would be impressive.
Right? That'd be like a good list.
Oh yeah.
155 million. Yes, I've heard the legend. Darkest Suka says, Jace, doing all that requires that you actually play games rather than talk about playing them all the time. So, listen, when the lips of noobs flap like that, I just merely have to grin and bear it. That's all there is to it. Kaboom, I don't think there's very few people who could take me in Kaboom. The only person who gives me pause on Kaboom is probably Todd Rogers. Because I was talking to him, man, and he's like, you know, he'll take it up to 999,000, and you know, he'll do it on difficulty A or B when it's small or something like that. Like I'm like, man, Yar's Revenge, that'd be great. Like I said, a whole 2600 thing would be fun. I just think be a fun thing, a whole sort of thing. But that's just me. What else? Anything else? I'm here. I got I got a minute and 15 seconds. 15 seconds. So, you know, one of the things that Twin Galaxies had a harder time doing in the past was communicating frequently and effectively and addressing questions and answering to concerns. So I'm really trying to make an effort to make sure that Twin Galaxies lives up to that part of the responsibility, so other than scorekeeping, right? And please, you know, put whatever on the forums. Me or someone on staff will answer, and we're just trying to get this. It's just a lot of work, man. We're making good progress. I mean, Twin Galaxies is taking in more scores and adjudicating more scores than it ever has in the history of its whole existence. So great, but there's so much more we can be doing, and we're going to be putting more systems in place to support the players. And see, I haven't even gotten into all the marketing we have planned for promoting achievers and all that other stuff. It's top secrets. But I got 10 seconds left, so I'm going to get out, and you guys can do amazing things. And then I'm out.
Twin Galaxies.